They made the older nurse wait outside the boardroom, never knowing she founded the clinic. Evelyn Hart had one hand on the boardroom door when a young man in a navy suit stepped in front of her. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The board is in closed session." Evelyn glanced at the brass plaque beside the door. Harbor Bridge Community Clinic, Executive Conference Room. Then at the paper cup of coffee cooling between her fingers. "I was asked to come up. For the staffing report. For the meeting." He smiled the way people smiled when they were trying to move an older person without making it look like they were moving an older person. "You can wait right there. Someone will get you when they need nursing input." There were 4 chairs in the hall. Evelyn took the one closest to the door. Through the frosted glass, silhouettes moved around the long table. Somewhere inside, the board was deciding whether Harbor Bridge would remain an independent community clinic or become part of Northlake Health, a regional network with deeper pockets, newer software, and no sentimental attachment to the things Evelyn had spent 32 years building. None of the people who had just sent her into the hallway knew that. The young man returned to his tablet. His badge read Ben Carter, Board Liaison. Evelyn's badge said only E. Hart, RN. She had chosen it that way. A woman in scrubs hurried around the corner, carrying a folder thick with printouts. Tasha Green, the clinic's home visit nurse, stopped short when she saw Evelyn. "What are you doing out here?" Apparently, waiting for nursing input. Tasha stared at the closed door. "You're kidding." Evelyn lifted one finger. "Don't. Evelyn. Don't tell them." Tasha's mouth tightened. She had worked at Harbor Bridge for 9 years, long enough to know the history, and long enough to know Evelyn's talent for turning stubbornness into a moral principle. "You were invited," Tasha whispered. "I was." "Then go in." "I tried." "That's not what I mean." Evelyn looked through the frosted glass. "I know." Inside, a man's voice rose just enough to carry through the door. "If we reject Northlake, payroll becomes the issue, not philosophy. Payroll." Tasha's expression changed. "That's Julian." Julian Mercer was the clinic's board treasurer, a former hospital finance executive who spoke in neat columns even when there was no spreadsheet in front of him. A second voice answered, lower and steadier. "Maya Chen, Harbor Bridge's interim executive director. We are not voting based on panic. We are voting based on cash." Evelyn felt the old familiar pull in her chest, not fear exactly, but the instinct to enter a room and take responsibility before anyone could ask whether she should. Tasha handed Ben the folder. "These are the home visit outcomes Maya requested." Ben accepted it. "Thanks. I'll take it in." Tasha didn't let go. "There are patient notes clipped to the back. They're de-identified, but you need to give the whole folder to Maya." "I will." "I mean the whole folder." He gave her a polite look. "I understand." Tasha released it and turned to Evelyn. "Mrs. Delgado missed 2 appointments this week. Her son's hours got cut. She can't afford the bus plus the copay at the pharmacy. Did you arrange delivery?" "For this week. Not if Northlake cuts home visits." Ben looked up. Tasha did not lower her voice. "That's what they're discussing, right?" Ben hesitated. Evelyn answered for him. "Among other things." The boardroom door opened. Maya Chen stepped out, still holding a pen in one hand. She was 42, compact, composed, and carrying the kind of exhaustion that had learned to wear professional clothes. She saw Tasha first. "Good. The numbers?" "Ben has them." Then Maya noticed Evelyn. For one brief second, recognition flickered. Not recognition of who Evelyn was. Recognition of the nurse from the 3rd-floor wound care unit, who had argued with her 2 days ago over a discharge plan. "Ms. Hart," Maya said. "I didn't know you'd been called up." "I was." Maya looked at Ben. He said, "She said she was here for the meeting." Maya's brow creased, but another voice called her name from inside. She turned back to Evelyn. We're in executive session. I can bring you in when we get to patient operations. Evelyn studied her. 2 days earlier, Maya had stood at the nurse's station and insisted that an elderly patient could go home with remote monitoring and a next-day telehealth check. Evelyn had refused to sign off until someone called the man's apartment manager and confirmed the elevator had been broken for 3 weeks. The patient lived on the 5th floor. Maya had called the delay operationally difficult. Evelyn had called discharging him anyway gravity. Neither had apologized. Patient operations, Evelyn repeated. Maya's jaw shifted. Yes. Then I'll wait. Maya nodded once and went back inside. Tasha watched the door close. You're enjoying this? No. You have that look. What look? The look you had when Dr. Salazar tried to ban family members from the old waiting room after 7 p.m. That was a bad policy. You got it reversed in 12 hours. It was a very bad policy. Tasha folded her arms. Why are you really sitting here? Evelyn looked down at her coffee. Because 3 weeks earlier, Harold Pace, the last board member who had been there when Harbor Bridge first opened, had called her at home and said, "You need to hear what they say when they don't think the founder is in the room." Because Harold was in cardiac rehab and could not attend. Because the clinic's public history had been reduced during a rebrand to a tasteful wall timeline downstairs that credited a coalition of neighborhood nurses, physicians, churches, and residents. Evelyn had approved that wording herself. She had never wanted Harbor Bridge to become a shrine to one person. Because 7 of the 9 current board members had joined after she stepped away from leadership. Some knew her name. Fewer had met her. 2 had assumed in email that Hart was Harold's administrative assistant. And because Evelyn had told Harold she would listen before she spoke. That was the part she was already failing. I want to know what they're protecting, she said. Tasha's expression softened. And what are you protecting? Evelyn looked through the glass again. My clinic. Tasha did not smile. That answer is exactly why you should be careful. The door opened once more. Ben stood aside. Ms. Hart? They're ready for you. Evelyn rose, smoothed the front of her pale blue scrub top, and carried her untouched coffee into the room she had helped pay to renovate 21 years earlier by raffling a donated fishing boat in a church parking lot. No one stood. There were 8 people around the table, plus Maya at the far end. Julian Mercer sat beside a wall screen displaying a slide titled Independent Scenario, 12-month cash projection. A red line bent downward. Maya gestured to the empty chair nearest the door. Ms. Hart, we're discussing patient-facing consequences. I'd like the board to hear what the proposed North Lake transition could mean in practice. Evelyn sat. Julian barely looked at her. Specifically home visits. Home visits, evening wound care, chronic disease outreach, whatever she's seeing. Evelyn placed her coffee on the table. A board member in a pearl gray jacket asked, How long have you been with Harbor Bridge? Long enough. Julian's eyes lifted. Maya said, Ms. Hart. 32 years, Evelyn answered. That got more attention. The woman in gray smiled. Then you've seen a lot of change. Yes. Do patients adapt? Evelyn glanced at the red line on the screen. To what? Centralized scheduling, more telehealth, fewer home-based services, referrals into North Lake Specialty Network. Some will. And the others? They'll disappear from your numbers before they disappear from the neighborhood. Julian leaned back. Can you be more specific? Yes. A patient with reliable internet, a working phone, paid leave, a car, and a daughter who understands medication instructions may do very well. A patient with 2 bus transfers, a prepaid phone, early dementia, and a son who gets fired if he leaves work again. The room went quiet, not stunned, just attentive. Maya tapped her pen against the table. That's why we're asking. Evelyn looked at her. Are you asking because the answer can change the deal? Julian responded before Maya could. The deal is not final. That wasn't my question. His mouth tightened. Northlake has made clear that certain duplicative programs would be consolidated. Duplicative to whom? Ms. Hart, Maya said. Evelyn turned to her. Maya's voice stayed calm. We need useful detail, not a referendum. There it was. The old he. Evelyn could have corrected everyone then. She could have said, this clinic started in 2 borrowed church rooms because women in this neighborhood were being discharged after childbirth without anyone checking whether they had food, heat, or blood pressure medicine. I wrote the first home visit protocol at my kitchen table. I know exactly what this program is for. Instead, she heard Harold's voice. Listen before you speak. So she folded her hands. Useful detail, she said. Mrs. D has congestive heart failure. Her son works warehouse nights. She missed 2 appointments this week. Tasha kept her out of the emergency department by noticing 3 pounds of weight gain during a home visit. Julian nodded toward the screen. And what does one home visit cost? Maya answered. Fully loaded, average is $98. And an emergency admission. Thousands, said the woman in gray. Julian nodded. Which is why Northlake's scale matters. They can absorb risk across a larger system. Evelyn studied him. Then why cut the visit? He met her eyes. Because a clinic that runs out of cash does not provide $98 home visits. It provides nothing. That answer landed harder than she wanted it to. Maya looked at Evelyn, and Evelyn realized with irritation that Maya had noticed. Julian continued. We are not choosing between compassion and cruelty. We are choosing between a merger that preserves 80% of services and an independence plan that may preserve 100% until it preserves 0. Evelyn felt every person in the room waiting for the nurse to respond. She could not dismiss the point. So she asked, how many weeks of cash do we have? Maya stopped tapping her pen. Julian's eyes narrowed, just slightly. Why? He asked. Because if you want useful detail, I need useful detail. Maya and Julian exchanged a look. Then Maya said, 6. Evelyn did not move. 6 weeks. Not 6 months. Not a difficult year. 6 weeks before payroll, vendors, rent, pharmacy invoices, and every promise the clinic had made to the neighborhood began competing for the same exhausted dollars. Tasha had been right. Evelyn's answer, my clinic, suddenly sounded smaller than the problem. Maya closed the slide. That is confidential, she said. Evelyn looked around the table. 8 board members. 7 of them strangers. Then perhaps, she said, you should stop treating the people who know what happens downstairs as if they're outside the problem. No one spoke. Maya's face changed, not into anger, but something more guarded. Thank you, Miss Hart, she said. That will be all for now. Evelyn picked up her coffee. At the door, Julian said, for what it's worth, I agree with that. She turned. He gestured toward the hallway. Staff should have been included earlier. Evelyn almost smiled. Then include them, she said. Outside, Ben stood so quickly he nearly dropped his tablet. Evelyn sat in the same chair again. This time, the door did not feel like the insult. The 6 weeks did. 2 hours later, Evelyn was downstairs changing a wound dressing when Maya found her. The patient, Mr. Beck, was 73 and had spent most of the appointment complaining that the clinic's new parking validation machine was an instrument of humiliation. Evelyn taped the last edge of gauze. You say that about every machine invented after 1998. That was the last decent year. Your blood sugar was 240 this morning. That's unrelated. It's related to your cinnamon rolls. Those are medicinal. Maya stood in the doorway until Mr. Beck noticed her. You the parking person? No. Then I got no grievance with you. Evelyn gave him his instructions and waited until he had shuffled away before looking at Maya. You sent me out twice in one day. That must be a record. Maya closed the door. I didn't send you out. I came to ask you something. Evelyn pulled off her gloves. Ask. Why did Harold Pace put your name on the meeting list? Evelyn dropped the gloves into the bin. There were several possible answers. Harold wanted a veteran nurse in the room. Harold thought the board needed institutional memory. Harold was meddling from cardiac rehab. All were true. None were the truth Maya was asking for. Evelyn washed her hands slowly. Why don't you ask Harold? I did. That made Evelyn look up. Maya held her gaze. He told me to ask you. Sounds like Harold. He also laughed for almost 30 seconds. That sounds even more like Harold. Maya did not laugh. Ms. Hart, I'm trying to keep this place open. I have lenders calling, staff hearing rumors, a lab contract that renews in 11 days, and a board split almost down the middle. If there is something relevant about your involvement, I need to know. Evelyn dried her hands. You know I've been here 32 years. That is not what I asked. No. Then, answer me. The demand should have offended her. Instead, Evelyn recognized it. She had used the same tone on residents, contractors, politicians, and one bishop who had promised a van and delivered a prayer. She leaned against the counter. How long have you been an interim director? 4 months. And before that, chief operating officer for 2 years. And before that, Northlake. Maya's expression sharpened. For 6 years. You negotiated service integrations. Yes. And now Northlake wants us. They want a partnership. They want control. They want predictable governance and financial reporting. Evelyn gave a dry laugh. That sounds like control wearing a tie. Maya took a breath. This is what I mean. You come into meetings with conclusions already formed. You know what you don't want. Do you know what you would do instead? Not yet. Then I need room to work. Evelyn looked at the dark circles under her eyes. You haven't slept. That is not relevant. It is if you're making irreversible decisions. And your blood pressure is 160/94. Evelyn froze. Maya's mouth almost moved. You left the screening kiosk results on the printer yesterday. That machine lies. So does every patient who doesn't like the number. For the first time, Evelyn saw the person behind the interim title, not a former Northlake strategist, not the woman who had nearly discharged a man into a broken elevator, but someone who had learned the clinic's habits quickly enough to use one against her. Maya softened her voice. Harold said there is history I'm missing. Evelyn looked toward the closed door. You are. What history? Evelyn could have told her. Instead she said, before you sign away the home visit program, come on one. Maya blinked. What? Tomorrow, 7:30. Tasha and I are going to see Mrs. Delgado. I have budget meetings. Move one. I can't just. You asked what I would do instead. First, I would see what I'm deciding about. Maya stared at her. Evelyn waited. At last Maya said, one visit. One. And after that, you tell me why Harold laughed. Evelyn considered. I'll tell you something useful. That is not the same thing. No. But. Maya shook her head, irritated despite herself. 7:30. She reached for the door. Maya. She turned. 6 weeks? Maya's shoulders lowered by a fraction. Maybe 7 if collections improve. And if Northlake walks? 4, Brian. For the first time all day, Evelyn had nothing sharp to say. Maya opened the door. That, she said quietly, is what I'm protecting. At 7:28 the next morning, Maya arrived in the clinic parking lot, wearing black slacks, low heels, and a coat too structured for a home visit. Tasha looked her up and down. You own sneakers? Yes. Do they live far away? Maya ignored her and climbed into the passenger seat of the clinic's aging blue hatchback. Evelyn sat in back with a blood pressure cuff, scale, medication box, and a canvas tote with a repaired strap. The tote had once been white. 32 years of washing had turned it the color of oatmeal. Maya pointed to it. That thing older than the car? By a lot. What's in it? Things people forget they need. Tasha started the engine. Bandages, crackers, bus cards, pens, batteries, 2 kinds of tape, an extension cord, tea bags, and probably a small civilization. 3 flashlights, Evelyn said. See? Mrs. Delgado lived in a brick apartment building 12 minutes from the clinic and 3 worlds away from its conference room. The elevator worked. The heat did not work well. Her son, Louis, opened the door in a warehouse uniform and apologized because he had to leave in 20 minutes. You don't apologize for going to work, Evelyn told him. I apologize for leaving her alone. His mother called from the living room. I am 79, not 7. And she has excellent hearing, Tasha said. Mrs. Delgado was small, silver-haired, and furious about the scale. No. Tasha needs your weight. No. You like Tasha. I liked her yesterday. Maya stood near the doorway, uncertain whether to watch or disappear. Evelyn held out a hand. Give me your slippers. Mrs. Delgado narrowed her eyes. Why? Because you hide weights in them. I do not. You put a can of beans in one last month. That was one time. Maya looked at Tasha. Tasha whispered. It was 2. Mrs. Delgado finally stepped onto the scale. 3.5 pounds up. The jokes stopped. Tasha knelt beside her and asked about breathing, sleep, swelling, meals, pills. Evelyn checked the medication organizer and found Wednesday morning's diuretic still in its compartment. Mrs. Delgado frowned. I took it. You took the little white one, Evelyn said. They are little white ones. Louis looked at the clock, then at his mother. Maya moved closer. Would color labels help? Mrs. Delgado shrugged. Big symbols? Maya asked. Sun for morning, moon for night. I can see. I know. I'm asking what would make it less annoying. That earned a glance. Different boxes, Mrs. Delgado said. Not one box with 100 doors. Maya nodded. That makes sense. Evelyn watched her. At the clinic, Maya had spent months talking about medication adherence and percentages. Here, she asked a woman what annoyed her. Tasha called the provider. The dose was adjusted. A same-day pharmacy delivery was arranged. Before they left, Maya noticed a space heater near an overloaded power strip. That plug is hot, she said. Louis crouched and touched it. Dan. Evelyn pulled an extension cord from the old tote. Maya looked at her. You really do carry everything. No, just the things people needed often enough that I got tired of not having them. On the stairs, Maya said, Northlake has home care. Not this kind. They have nurses. I didn't say they don't. They have social workers. Also true. Maya stopped on the landing. Then tell me the difference without turning them into a villain. Evelyn stopped too. Tasha continued downward, giving them space. The difference, Evelyn said, is that their home care begins after a qualifying event and ends when the reimbursable episode ends. Ours begins when we notice somebody is slipping through a crack. Maya nodded slowly. That's expensive. Yes. And difficult to scale. Yes. And some of it is not billable. Yes. Maya stared at her. You're agreeing with me. I agree with facts. I'm not required to like what you do with them. Maya leaned against the rail. What if keeping this exact program means losing the clinic? Evelyn's immediate answer rose. Then we find money. She swallowed it. What if cutting it means keeping the building but losing the reason the building exists? That's not fair. No. North Lake would keep primary care, pediatrics, behavioral health, the pharmacy, and centralized scheduling. Yes. Reduce evening hours. Probably. Move specialty referrals. Yes. Close home visits to patients who don't meet their criteria. Yes. They stood in the cold stairwell, with all the clean answers exposed. Maya said, "You think I don't understand what those changes cost? I think you understand on paper." And now? Evelyn looked toward the apartment above them. "Now I think you came." It was not praise exactly. Maya received it as if it were. Back at Harbor Bridge, Evelyn found Harold Pace waiting in the lobby with a cane he resented, and a cardiology nurse he resented more. "You're supposed to be in rehab," Evelyn said. "I escaped." The cardiology nurse said. "He was discharged." "Details," Harold muttered. At 81, Harold looked like a retired judge because he had been one. He had also been the first person in the neighborhood to give Evelyn a key to a building she did not own and tell her to start seeing patients. Maya came through the doors behind them. Harold brightened. "Maya." She pointed at him. "You." He looked delighted. "You could have told me," she said. "I could have told you many things. It's one of the burdens of age." Evelyn gave him a warning look. Harold ignored it. "Did she take you to Mrs. Delgado?" Maya's gaze moved between them. "How did you know that?" "Because Evelyn believes all policy disagreements can be solved by making an administrator carry a blood pressure cuff up 3 flights of stairs." "That's not true," Evelyn said. 4 flights occasionally." Maya went still. Something in Harold's familiarity had shifted the equation. She looked at Evelyn's canvas tote, then at Harold, then back to Evelyn. "What am I missing?" Harold opened his mouth. Evelyn said, "Not here." Maya's expression hardened. "You promised me something useful, and I'll give it to you." "When?" "After lunch." "Why after lunch?" "Because before lunch I have patience." Maya laughed once, without humor. "Of course you do." She walked away. Harold watched her go. "She's good. She worked for Northlake." "That does not answer what I said." "She almost discharged a man into a broken elevator." "And then?" "Then she changed the protocol." Harold smiled. Evelyn frowned. "What?" "You noticed." "I notice everything." "No, you notice mistakes. You used to notice corrections too, Dottie." She looked at him. He adjusted his grip on the cane. "You are not here to test whether everyone deserves the clinic you built." "I'm not testing anyone." "You sat outside your own boardroom rather than say your name." "They should have checked the meeting list." "Yes, and you enjoyed being right." Evelyn's jaw tightened. Harold lowered his voice. "Be careful. Humiliation is intoxicating when you know there's a reveal coming." That struck close enough that she hated him for a moment. He knew it. "That is not why I stayed quiet," she said. "Not entirely. Go back to rehab." "I've been discharged." "Go back anyway." He laughed and walked toward the elevators. At 1 o'clock, Evelyn entered Maya's office. No dramatic reveal had been planned. No audience. No board. Evelyn had spent a lifetime avoiding ceremonies when an ordinary room would do. Maya had 2 sandwiches on her desk. "I guess turkey." "I don't eat mayonnaise." "Of course you don't." "Why of course?" "Because mayonnaise requires trust." Against her will, Evelyn smiled. Maya pushed the second sandwich toward her. "I scraped most of it off." Evelyn sat. On the wall behind Maya hung a framed photograph from the clinic's 25th anniversary. The image showed 40 staff members on the front steps. Evelyn stood in the 3rd row, half hidden behind a pediatrician wearing a ridiculous green tie. Maya followed her gaze. You're in that picture. Yes. I noticed after Harold left. Very investigative. Your last name is on the donor wall downstairs. So are 60 others. And the Nursing Education Fund is called the Hart Fellowship. That was not my idea. Maya leaned back. I searched the archived website. Evelyn waited. Maya turned her monitor. A scanned newspaper clipping filled the screen. The photograph was grainy and old. A younger Evelyn stood outside a church basement in white nurse's shoes, holding a handmade sign, Harbor Bridge Free Clinic, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. The headline read, Local Nurse Opens Neighborhood Clinic with Volunteers. Maya's face was controlled, but color had risen into her cheeks. You founded Harbor Bridge. With other people. You founded it. I helped. For 32 years you have been not executive director for 32 years. You were executive director for 18. Yes. Board chair for 6. Yes. And yesterday you sat in that room while I introduced you as a nurse giving operational input. I am a nurse giving operational input. Maya stared at her. Evelyn opened the sandwich. Turkey. Evelyn. It was the first time Maya had used her first name. Evelyn looked up. Why didn't you tell me? The question was not embarrassed now. It was angry. I wanted to hear the discussion. You were invited as what? Founder? Former director? Staff nurse? Harold invited me as Evelyn Hart. That is not an answer. He wanted institutional memory in the room. And you let us believe you were there because someone had called a nurse upstairs. Yes. Maya pushed away from the desk. Do you understand how manipulative that feels? Evelyn's fingers tightened around the sandwich wrapper. I didn't lie. You curated the truth. That phrase sounds expensive. It was free. Maya stood and walked to the window. You let Ben send you outside. I didn't let him. He did it. You could have corrected him. Yes. You let me send you back out. Yes. And then you watched us. I listened. Without telling us who was listening. Evelyn's temper rose. Would you have spoken differently if you knew? Yes. That's exactly the problem. No, I too. Maya turned. That is exactly what trust is. Context matters. Power matters. History matters. You knew all of mine. I knew almost none of yours. Evelyn stood too. You had access to every annual report this clinic has ever filed. I had a clinic collapsing in real time. Forgive me for not reading 30 years of founder biographies. There is no founder biography. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is you wanted an unfiltered look at us, and you got it by keeping us at an information disadvantage. Evelyn opened her mouth. Maya cut in. And maybe we deserve some of what you saw. Ben should have checked. I should have asked why your name was on the list. The board should have had frontline staff in sooner, but you don't get to turn our mistakes into proof of your wisdom when you design the test. The room went very still. Evelyn thought of Harold's words. Humiliation is intoxicating when you know there's a reveal coming. I didn't design the test, she said, but the sentence lacked force. Maya's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. Didn't you? Evelyn looked at the old clipping on the screen. In the photograph, she was 36 years old and certain that if she worked hard enough, listened closely enough, and refused enough bad compromises, she could protect people from systems that forgot them. She had not imagined becoming part of the system other people would someday have to negotiate around. I was asked to listen, she said. Then listen to this. We have 6 weeks of cash because Harbor Bridge delayed hard decisions for years. Evelyn looked up. Maya continued. 3 years ago, the board recommended a modest sliding fee for patients above 400% of the poverty line. You opposed it. We had other options. You used reserve funds. They were reserves. 2 years ago, staff proposed consolidating two underused evening programs. They served different populations. Both averaged under 4 patients per night. They were rebuilding after the pandemic. You asked for another year, and they improved. Not enough. Evelyn's pulse thudded. Maya moved back to her desk and opened a folder. I'm not blaming you for all of this. The reimbursement environment changed. Costs rose. A grant ended. Our lab vendor increased rates. But your name still carries weight here, even when you pretend it doesn't. Every time someone proposed changing a piece of the original model, I stepped down. You stepped down from authority, not influence. That distinction landed like a hand on a bruise. Maya slid a page across the desk. It was a list of deferred decisions. Evelyn recognized them one by one. She had not ordered people to delay. She had argued, persuaded, asked for more time, found temporary money, made one more phone call. Each individual choice had seemed humane. Together, they formed a pattern. What do you want from me? She asked. Maya sat. Stop asking whether we love this place enough. Evelyn looked at her. We do, Maya said. Ask whether the way you loved it still works. Evelyn left the office with the uneaten half of her sandwich in the old canvas tote. For the rest of the afternoon, she did what she trusted herself to do. She worked. She changed dressings, called a daughter about a medication list, found a Spanish language instruction sheet that someone had filed in pediatrics, sat for 6 minutes with a man whose wife had died and who had started scheduling unnecessary blood pressure checks because the clinic was the only place anyone said his name. At 5:30, Tasha found her restocking gauze. You told Maya. She found out. That sounds like a distinction you'd make. Evelyn shoved a box onto the shelf too hard. Tasha leaned against the doorframe. How bad? She accused me of manipulation. Tasha said nothing. Evelyn turned. You agree? I think you had reasons. That is not what I asked. Tasha sighed. I think if a patient withheld something important because they wanted to see what we do without knowing it, you would call that information relevant. That is different. Why? Because? Evelyn stopped. Tasha raised her eyebrows. Evelyn looked away. Everyone is very courageous today. Occupational hazard. What do you want? Maya asked for 3 nurses, 2 front desk people, and a medical assistant to join a service redesign group. When? Tomorrow. Before the board votes. Board delayed the vote 48 hours. That surprised her. Why? Julian asked for it. Julian? He said the board had not done enough staff consultation. Evelyn remembered his comment after the meeting. Include them. Tasha smiled slightly. Turns out spreadsheets can develop a conscience. Don't be childish. He had a point yesterday too. Tasha's eyebrows rose higher. What? You admitted Julian had a point. I said, don't be childish. Historic day. Evelyn picked up another box. Tasha's smile faded. Maya wants you on the redesign group. Evelyn looked at her. AS founder. Us, a nurse. The answer should have pleased her. Instead, it stung. Tasha saw that too. Good, Evelyn said after a moment. That's where I'm useful. The service redesign meeting began at 8 the next morning in a classroom with bad acoustics and a whiteboard that never fully erased. Maya wrote one question at the top. What must Harbor Bridge still do if everything else changes? Julian sat at the back with a laptop. Evelyn took a chair beside Tasha. For 90 minutes, no one discussed the merger. They discussed patience. Receptionist Maribel Ortiz said centralized scheduling would fail if every appointment started with a call center asking for an insurance number before asking why the person was calling. Medical assistant Devin Price said the evening clinic was under-used because the clinic had stopped advertising it after losing 2 bilingual staff members. Tasha said, Home visits were too broad. Nurses were spending time on problems community health workers could handle for less money. Evelyn turned sharply. You want to cut nursing visits? I want nurses doing nursing. Mrs. Delgado needed a nurse. Yes, Mr. Lewis needed someone to replace a smoke detector battery and help him fill out a transit form. He also had uncontrolled diabetes. And I spent 40 minutes on a transit form before I got to his feet. The room was quiet. Evelyn felt the urge to defend the program as it existed. Then Maya asked, if we separate clinical home visits from navigation visits, what happens? Tasha answered, immediately. We can probably double coverage without doubling nursing hours. Julian typed something. Evelyn looked at Tasha. You've thought about this for a year. Why didn't you tell me? Tasha's face changed. I did. Evelyn stared. Last winter, Tasha said. I brought you a proposal. Memory arrived slowly, and then all at once. A 6-page document, a late shift, a patient crashing. Evelyn saying they would talk after grant season. They never had. I thought you wanted to replace nurses, Evelyn said. I wanted to stop using nurses as expensive errand runners. Evelyn lowered her eyes. Maya did not rescue her from the moment. That, Evelyn later realized, was a kindness. She simply asked Tasha, can you rebuild the proposal for current volume? Yes. By tomorrow? Yes. Evelyn looked at the whiteboard. What must Harbor Bridge still do if everything else changes? Not. What must remain exactly as Evelyn built it? For the first time, she understood those were different questions. By noon the next day, the whiteboard had become 3 walls of paper. Every program was represented by an index card. Green cards meant essential to Harbor Bridge's mission. Yellow meant useful, but redesignable. Red meant duplicative, unsustainable, or better provided elsewhere. No one wanted to put anything on red. Julian finally stood. This is not a values exercise if every value survives. Maribel crossed her arms. Easy to say, when you don't work the desk. It is easy to say because arithmetic is emotionally uncomplicated. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about arithmetic, Devon muttered. Julian almost smiled. Maya pointed to the 2 evening programs. Start here. Evelyn felt the room turn toward her without anyone looking directly at her. The original Tuesday and Thursday evening clinic had been the first service Harbor Bridge ever offered. Over time, it had split into a general after-hours clinic and a separate chronic care evening session. Both now ran below capacity. Evelyn knew the numbers. She also knew what the cards meant. If she argued to preserve both, everyone would hear the founder, even if her badge still said RN. She looked at Maribel. What happens if we combine them? Maribel blinked. We'd need cross-training. Can we do it? Yes. Tasha? Probably. Devon? If scheduling stops booking every complex diabetic patient at 6:45. That was one time. It was last Tuesday. Evelyn looked at Maya. 1 evening program, she said. Same total hours for the first 8 weeks. Measure volume, no-show rate, and emergency follow-up. If it fails patients, we revisit. Julian stopped typing. Maya asked, You're proposing consolidation? Evelyn hated the word. Yes. The room remained quiet. She felt unexpectedly foolish. She had spent 2 days bracing for someone to take something from her, and now the first real cut had come from her own mouth. Maya moved 1 card to red and rewrote the other. Combined evening access, she said. Evelyn nodded. Nothing collapsed. No portrait fell from the wall. No ghost of the first Tuesday clinic appeared to accuse her. The meeting continued. By 3, the group had found savings that did not require Northlake. Fewer outside agency shifts, renegotiated lab pickup, consolidated software licenses, the redesigned home visit model, a smaller leased storage space, and the combined evening clinic. It was not enough. Julian projected the new numbers. If every assumption holds, this extends runway from 6 weeks to 11. Maribel exhaled. That sounds good. It is better, Julian said. It is not stability. What gets us stability? Tasha asked. Julian hesitated. Maya answered. Closing obstetrics follow-up as a standalone program and moving postpartum care into general primary care. Evelyn's chair scraped the floor. No. Maya looked at her. The postpartum program was not large. It was not glamorous. It sent nurses and community health workers to new mothers at home, especially those with hypertension, depression risk, language barriers, or no regular physician. It was the descendant of the first problem Harbor Bridge had been created to solve. Maya spoke carefully. We are not ending postpartum care. You are dissolving the program. We are integrating it into a primary care model already running at capacity, with protected slots. For how long? Evelyn. For how long? Julian answered. We can commit to 12 months in the independent scenario. And after that, we reassess. That means after that, it competes with everything else. Yes? No? Hi? Maya's eyes hardened. Then identify an equivalent savings line. Executive compensation. Julian closed his eyes. Maya did not flinch. Mine is already 28% below market. Still, more than a nurse. And less than Northlake offered me to come back. The room shifted. Evelyn stared at her. Maya had never mentioned another offer. Julian said quietly, she turned it down in May. Why? Evelyn asked. Maya looked irritated by the question. Because I work here. It was the simplest answer in the room. Evelyn sat back. The clinic had spent 32 years becoming a place people chose. She had somehow begun acting as if she were the only one who had chosen it. Tasha broke the silence. What if postpartum home visits used the new tiered model too? Maya shook her head. Helpful, not enough. What about the Hart Fellowship? Devon asked. Evelyn looked at him. The fellowship paid 2 early career nurses each year to spend 6 months rotating through community care. It was funded partly by donations and partly by clinic operating money. Julian typed. If we pause the clinic-funded portion for 1 year, that closes roughly a third of the remaining gap. Evelyn's stomach tightened. The fellowship bore her name because a former patient had insisted on it when he endowed the first half. Evelyn had pretended not to care. She cared. Pause it, she said. Tasha turned. Evelyn. Pause it. Maya watched her closely. 1 year. 1 year. But notify the current candidates before anything is public. Don't make them find out from a board memo. Julian entered the change. 2/3 of the gap remains. Evelyn looked at the postpartum card. She could not move it. Not yet. That evening she went home angry at everyone. Her house was a narrow brick duplex 6 blocks from Harbor Bridge, filled with books, plants and chairs, no 2 of which matched. On the kitchen wall hung the original clinic Key Harold had given her in 1994 Darda. She had framed it after the church sold the building. For years, people who visited assumed it was sentimental. It was. Evelyn made tea and stood looking at the key. Her daughter, Rachel, called at 8:15. You sound tired. I'm not. You always say that when you're tired. How are the boys? Changing the subject through grandchildren is still changing the subject. Evelyn sat at the table. Rachel lived in Baltimore and worked as a high school counselor. She had grown up doing homework in Harbor Bridge waiting rooms and eating vending machine dinners during flu seasons. The clinic may merge with Northlake, Evelyn said. Rachel was quiet. Do you want it to? No. That wasn't the question. Evelyn smiled despite herself. You've become irritating. Genetics. Evelyn told her about the 6 weeks. The service, redesign, the evening programs, the fellowship. She did not tell her about sitting outside the boardroom. Rachel listened. Then she said, Mom, do you remember my 8th grade play? Evelyn frowned. Of course. You missed it. I got there for the end. You got there during Bose. There was a patient. I know. Mrs. Henson's baby had a fever, and the relief nurse was late. Evelyn stopped. Rachel remembered the reason. Of course she did. I'm not bringing it up to punish you, Rachel said. I'm saying Harbor Bridge has always been the thing you saved. People needed it. I know. And you had your father. I know. The words were gentle, which made them harder. Rachel continued. But sometimes when something needed you, you loved being needed so much that nobody could compete with it. Evelyn looked at the framed key. That's unfair. Probably a little. Your father understood. Dad understood everything until he didn't. Evelyn closed her eyes. Sam had died 7 years earlier. In his last year, when heart failure made stairs difficult, he had asked Evelyn twice to reduce her clinic hours. She had reduced them on paper and continued answering calls at home. One night, after she interrupted dinner to solve a staffing problem, he had said, You know they'll learn to stand without you only if you stop holding them up. She had accused him of resenting the clinic. He had apologized. She never had. Rachel said, What are you scared happens if Harbor Bridge changes? That people get left behind. What else? Evelyn did not answer. Rachel waited. The truth came reluctantly. That it won't be mine anymore. There. A selfish sentence in a quiet kitchen. Rachel's voice softened. Maybe it stopped being yours when it started belonging to everyone else. Evelyn looked at the old key for a long time. The next morning, she took it off the wall. At the clinic, the board reconvened at 4. This time, Ben was waiting outside the conference room. When he saw Evelyn, he stood. EMS, Hart. Ben. His face colored. I owe you an apology. Yes. He swallowed, clearly not expecting that answer. Evelyn spared him. You also owe every staff member the courtesy of checking why they're on a meeting list before deciding they don't belong. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. It makes me feel 90. Yes, Evelyn. Better. He opened the door. She did not enter. Our staff representatives here? Tasha, Maribel, and Dr. Shah are coming up. Then we'll go in together. Ben nodded. A minute later, Maya rounded the corner and stopped at the sight of Evelyn waiting in the same chair as before. Something passed between them. This time, Evelyn was waiting by choice. When the staff arrived, Ben opened the door for all 4. Every board member knew who Evelyn was now. That was worse. 2 stood. One started to apologize. Another called her Amzie Hart, with the careful reverence people used around monuments. Evelyn hated it instantly. Sit down, she said. If anyone calls me Founder Hart, I'm leaving. A few people laughed, uncertainly. Julian did not. Maya began with the redesigned independence plan, DIT. 11 weeks of runway had become 16 if the board approved the program changes, paused the fellowship subsidy, and secured a temporary increase in the clinic's line of credit. 16 weeks. Still not enough. Northlake's revised offer preserved primary care, pediatrics, behavioral health, and pharmacy for at least 3 years. It retained 76% of employees. It eliminated the independent board after an 18-month transition. Home visits would be narrowed. Evening access would be reduced after 6 months if volume targets were not met. Then Maya revealed the new condition. Northlake wants an answer by Friday at noon. That's 44 hours, Maribel said. Julian nodded. They accelerated because another acquisition is under consideration. Board member Celeste Warren, the woman in gray, asked, "Can we negotiate more protection for home visits?" "I tried," Maya said. "They will guarantee a clinical home care pathway, not our current program." Evelyn looked at Julian. "You knew this yesterday?" "No. Offer came at 11 this morning." The continuation pressure in the room sharpened. 44 hours. Maya clicked to the final slide. "There is one additional independence option." Julian looked unhappy. Evelyn noticed. "What?" Maya did not answer immediately. Then she said, "Sell the Harbor Street building." No one spoke. Harbor Street was the clinic. Not legally. Not operationally. Harbor Bridge now ran 3 neighborhood sites. But Harbor Street was the original permanent building, purchased after 11 years in borrowed and rented spaces. The ground floor held pediatrics. The second held primary care. The third held wound care and administration. The basement still had hand-painted tiles made by local school children during the first renovation. Julian said, "The property has appreciated significantly. A sale-leaseback or full sale with relocation could recapitalize operations." "How much?" Evelyn asked. He gave a range. It was enough. Enough to eliminate the immediate crisis, fund the redesign, protect postpartum care, and create over a year of runway if the clinic moved some services to its other sites. The room blurred at the edges. Evelyn had fought for that building for 9 years. She had begged banks, negotiated with the city, sat through zoning meetings, sold raffle tickets, collected $5 donations in coffee cans. Sam had spent 3 weekends painting exam rooms. Harbor Street was where Rachel had done homework under the reception desk. It was where Sam's memorial had been held. It was where a plaque near the front entrance read, "This building belongs to the neighborhood that built it." Maya watched Evelyn. "The building is not the clinic," she said. Evelyn heard the truth in it and hated her for being the one to say it. Julian added, "The highest value use of that real estate is no longer medical outpatient space." Evelyn snapped, "Do not talk about it like a warehouse." He went still. Then, to her surprise, he closed his laptop. "My mother cleaned offices in that building for 11 years. Evelyn stared. Julian looked toward the windows. "Before the clinic bought it, when it was the old insurance office, she worked nights. I used to sit in the lobby after school until she finished because we couldn't afford childcare." Evelyn had not known. He continued, "The first time I came here as treasurer, I recognized the terrazzo floor. I hated that floor when I was a kid." His voice remained level, but his fingers had tightened around a pen. "So no, I do not think it is a warehouse." The room changed around him. "I think," Julian said, "a building can matter and still become the thing that prevents the institution inside it from surviving." Evelyn looked at him differently. Disliked, understood, still opposed. Maya placed 2 options on the screen. Merge with Northlake, sell Harbor Street, and remain independent. Neither felt like victory. That, Evelyn realized, was the first honest choice they had had. The board recessed for 30 minutes. Evelyn went downstairs. She did not visit the donor wall or the anniversary photographs. She went to the basement, where the old-school tiles still ran in a crooked line beside the laundry room. One tile showed a blue bridge over green water. Another showed a nurse with 6 fingers. A third said, in a child's uneven handwriting, "People come here when they need help." Maya found her there. "You always hide in useful places?" "I'm not hiding. You're in a basement. It has supplies." Maya leaned against the wall. "The board is split," she said. Julian favors selling the building. Celeste favors Northlake. 2 are undecided. "And you?" "Sell." Evelyn looked at her. Maya continued. Northlake solves more than money. Their systems are better. Their specialty access is better. Their purchasing power is better. But I don't trust the protections beyond the contract period. That sounds almost like something I'd say. I contain multitudes. Evelyn smiled faintly. Maya nodded toward the old canvas tote at Evelyn's feet. What do you want? To keep everything. Not available. I noticed. Silence settled between them. Then Maya said, The board will ask you to speak. Why? You know why. My name. Your history. Those are not the same thing. Evelyn reached into her pocket and closed her fingers around the old clinic key. I made it harder for people to change this place. Maya said nothing. I told myself I was protecting patients. Sometimes I was. Sometimes I was protecting evidence that my life had mattered. Maya's face softened. Evelyn looked at the child's tile. My husband once told me they'd never learn to stand without me if I kept holding them up. Was he right? He was irritating. So yes. Don't get comfortable. Maya laughed. Evelyn took out the key. This opened the first church basement. Maya accepted it carefully. It doesn't open anything now, Evelyn said. Then why carry it? Evelyn looked at her. That is an annoyingly good question. When they returned upstairs, every chair was occupied. Tasha sat beside Maribel. Ben stood against the wall. Julian had reopened his laptop, but was not looking at it. Celeste addressed Evelyn. You have more history with Harbor Bridge than anyone here. We would value your recommendation. Evelyn stood. For 32 years, she had known how to give room certainty. People had come to her for the sentence that separated right from wrong, patient from policy, mission from convenience. She had no such sentence now. Northlake is not evil, she began. Julian looked up. They would keep services open that might otherwise close. They employ good people. Maya used to be one of them, which I am trying not to hold against either party. A small laugh moved through the room. But their model is not ours. If we merge, some people will be served better, some will be served differently, and some of the people we built Harbor Bridge for will become harder to see. She paused. Selling this building hurts me more than I can explain without wasting everyone's evening. Tasha's eyes shone. My husband painted exam room 3. My daughter grew up in these halls. We bought this place with donations from people who had almost nothing. I have spent years telling myself that protecting what they built meant keeping it. Evelyn looked at Maya. I was wrong. The room became very quiet. A building can carry memory. It cannot be allowed to hold the future hostage. She turned toward the board. My recommendation is that Harbor Bridge remain independent, sell Harbor Street, redesign the programs we can redesign, protect the services that reach people other systems miss, and stop pretending every tradition is the same thing as a principle. Julian closed his eyes briefly. Evelyn continued. And I want one more thing entered into the record. Celeste nodded. The board has a founder consultation provision for major mission changes. It has been treated like a courtesy veto, even though the language is vague. Remove it. Maya stared at her. Evelyn's throat tightened. No more asking what Evelyn would think. Ask what the people we serve need now. For the first time, speaking cost more than staying silent. That was how she knew the decision was real. The vote was 6-2. Harbor Bridge would sell Harbor Street. There was no applause. Julian looked relieved and sad. Tasha cried silently for less than a minute, then asked when staff would be told. Maribel wanted a communication plan before rumors spread. Maya asked Ben to schedule an all-staff meeting for 7 the next morning. Work replaced drama. Evelyn preferred it that way. 4 months later, the final Harbor Street Clinic day ended at 6 p.m. The building had been sold to a non-profit housing organization that planned to convert the upper floors into apartments and lease the ground floor to a neighborhood pharmacy. Harbor Bridge had moved pediatrics and primary care into expanded space at its other two sites. The new home visit model used nurses for clinical care and community health workers for navigation. It reached 27% more patients in its first quarter. The combined evening clinic was busier than either old program had been. The Hart Fellowship returned with outside funding and a new name chosen by the nurses, the Harbor Bridge Community Fellowship. Evelyn had objected for exactly 9 seconds. Maya reminded her that she had requested less founder worship. Evelyn told Maya not to become smug. Their relationship settled into something neither would have predicted. Not friendship exactly, not yet, but trust strong enough to survive disagreement. On the final evening, staff gathered in the basement to remove the school tiles before renovation. Evelyn stood beside Maya with the old canvas tote open on the floor. "Things people forget they need?" Maya asked. "Today it's screwdrivers and newspaper." Together, they wrapped each tile. When they reached the one with the blue bridge, Maya held it up. "Where does this go?" Evelyn thought of the boardroom hallway. The 6 weeks. Mrs. Delgado. Tasha's proposal. Rachel's 8th grade play. Sam's words. The old key that now sat in Maya's desk drawer, because Evelyn had never asked for it back. "New waiting room," she said. Maya nodded. "And the 6-fingered nurse?" Evelyn took that tile herself. "My kitchen." They carried the boxes upstairs. At the front entrance, Ben was removing the brass plaque from the wall. He looked embarrassed when he saw Evelyn. "Feels strange." "It does." He handed her the plaque. For a moment, she held the clinic's name in both hands. 32 years earlier, she had wanted a place where people who were easy to overlook could still be seen. She had confused the place with the walls. Now, she understood the better version of what she had built. A clinic was not a building that remembered her. It was people who remembered to look. Evelyn handed the plaque back to Ben. "Take it to the new site." Then she picked up the canvas tote and walked out with everyone else.